Today we are going to be making a cigar box guitar. This should be a fairly simple build. We've got a cigar box. We've got a neck blank, which is 1.5 by 3/4 inch hard maple. I've made a scale template to lay out the fret lines. We have tuners. It's going to be a 3-string instrument. And we have some bolts to use as the nut and as the bridge. Precision isn't as exacting as on a regular guitar or other type of instrument because this is a slide instrument, so we're not going to be putting frets in the neck, and we're not going to be too fancy with our hardware. But you'll see as we proceed. We're going to start out by laying out the frets and laying out the neck for where we want things. We need room for the tuners here up the top. We need to make sure that the neck will fit into the cigar box. So we're going to lay out the neck based on all of that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out where it's going to sit in the cigar box. We're going to extend the back of the neck out for balance, and this is where the strings will attach. So I'm going to make a mark on the neck where the box top crosses it. Then I'm going to lay the fret scale along the neck. Figure some point. But we also have to consider that the scale length is 23 inches. We want to figure out where the bridge is going to be on the box and make sure that the bridge is going to sit somewhere before the end of the box, but not too close to the front. So we can actually probably slide this back a little bit more. The bridge is going to be about here, which should be a good location. So then I'm going to take the template, hold it against, and just mark where the fret lines need to go. And this template is made with 24 frets. You don't have to go 24 frets. Right, that's marked out. I'm going to take a square and I'm going to draw a line across at each line. Now this is the nut. The first line is the nut. And I'm going to make a light mark on here. And then I'm going to mark each fret. Right, 24 fret lines marked. The next step is we're going to wood burn those fret lines. I've tried it a couple different ways. I tried using the square as a straight edge, but it's too much of a heat sink. It wouldn't let the wood burn. So what we're going to do is just going to carefully follow those pencil lines with the wood burner. And this makes it a little more permanent. Takes a steady hand, and I don't have the steadiest of hands. But we'll get all those lines burned in. One thing that I also want to do now that I've got everything marked, I did not do the nut because we're going to actually cut a groove there to hold the bolt. But I need a guide. You don't necessarily have to put face dots. You could do face dots if you wanted to. You could just get a contrasting color of wood dowel, drill holes for the diameter, and then insert them. But I think I'm just going to leave this one plain. I'm just going to take my wood burner, and I've made little marks where I want to have side markers, and I'm just going to make a little burn mark. Just to show me where the fret markers are. You could also do this on the face. Two marks at the 12th fret. Again, we're not looking for perfection here. These guitars were built by people who didn't have money to buy guitars, and they're very rustic. They didn't have refined tools or fancy inlays, although you could, if you wanted to, you could get fancy inlays and special types of tuners and pickups. Just want to touch these up so they're nice and dark. Of course, this method wouldn't work if you were using a dark wood for the fretboard. You'd probably have to get some type of a contrasting wood and inlay it. And these fret markers, what I would do is make a saw kerf and insert a veneer of whatever type of wood. All right. Next thing we have to do is we have to mark out where we're going to cut out for the pegs, tuning pegs. So these tuning pegs are fairly deep. They almost can make it through the 3/4 inch wood as is, but we want to leave enough post sticking out to wrap the string around. So we're going to take about 1/4 inch off the top, and not quite to the nut, a little bit beyond the nut. So this is the bolt we're using. So if it's going to be centered there, we probably want to start the peg hole, say, about that far out. And again, we're being approximate. We don't have to be exact. I'm going to mark the sides. And then I can mark 1/4 inch deep. Make sure you mark from the same side on both sides of the peg head area. Take out that, and I always mark the waist. You don't want to accidentally cut off the good stuff and have to start all over again. Then I'm going to take a hand saw and I'm going to cut down to that 1/4 inch mark. to go to my bandsaw and take off that 1/4 inch. Alright, we've taken off the 1/4 inch. We will eventually sand that, but we're going to wait until we make the cutout for the box top. So we're going to double check our measurement that we have the correct width for the box top, and we do. And we need to measure the thickness of the box top. And this box top happens to be a hair over 3/16 deep. So we're going to make a mark again between those two marks on our neck. First we're going to square it up. Make sure we get a nice square edge. We're going to mark down 3/16 of an inch between those marks. The easiest way to remove this material is with a table saw. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dado stack on the table saw, and what we'll do is we'll set the depth of the blade and we will just move across between the lines. The first thing I will do though is make a pre-cut to mark the edges. Okay, I've set up my dado stack. I set up a 3/4 inch dado. For those of you that don't know what a dado is, it's a set of 2 blades, round blades with chippers that you put in between them, and the chippers can either have 2 or 4 teeth on them. And you stack them to get you different thicknesses, and you can use shims to get in between sizes. But this is set up for 3/4 because we do have quite a wide amount of material to remove, and this will be faster. I'm going to use the box thickness as a guide to where to set the depth of my dado. And you try to find the highest point and set it there. Now I want it to be at least as thick as the top. If I go a little deeper, it's not the end of the world, but we want to try to get it exact. Ordinarily you would take the top off the box, but this has a really nice integrated hinge, which we will, keeps the box nicely aligned, and it works really well. So I've got the height set. I'm going to run in a test piece first. And when you're using a dado, you always want to use, when you're cross-cutting like this, you always want to use a miter gauge to keep everything at 90 degrees. But we're going to take off the end of this and see how it fits on the box. test piece against it, and it's perfectly flush. So we've actually got the right depth right out of the gate. Now we take our neck, and what we want to do is we want to do the ends first. We're going to carefully line them up. So I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to line it up with that saw cut. And I'm going to run it through, make sure I'm to the end, and then I'm going to go to the other end, do the same thing, and then we'll cut out the middle. Okay, so we have our grooves, and now we're just going to take out this waste material in the middle. Okay, now we've got to test the fit. And there we are. Drops right into place. And what we'll do is we will we're gonna do some sanding in here to smooth this out and even it out, and it'll be perfect. The next thing we need to do is mark out where the tuners are going to go. So the tuners, I have 2 left and 1 right. The gear always faces towards the frets. So we're going to set these. These are the 2 left. This is the 1 right. We need to space them apart far enough. Usually about 1 inch is good. So we just need to determine where we want them. Want a good break angle over the nut so that it doesn't lift out. So we're going to make a mark 3/8 of an inch in. This peg head is narrow. Ordinarily I do a 1/2 inch, but because this peg head is so narrow, the tuners will touch each other if I make them a 1/2 inch, but 3/8 should be perfectly fine. Alright, and then we're just going to mark where we want the posts to come out. Usually looks really nice if the third one is right in between these other two. Change that. And it's 3 1/8 back. Just make it 3. This one's 1.5 inches. So we're going to split the difference. Alright, I did set these at even intervals, so there's 1.25 inches between these two. The second tuner, or what'll be the second tuner is 1.75 inches back. The first tuner is 3 inches back, so we split the difference in half, and this tuner is 2 3/8 back, so it forms a nice even triangle. Now, these tuners have bushings that go into the holes. These bushings are approximately 8 millimeters in diameter. So I've put an 8 millimeter bit in my drill press, and I will drill the holes for the tuners. So we have our holes drilled for the tuners. See how they go. Okay, they're gonna all fit, which is good. At this point, I've sanded the peg head, and what I'm probably going to do is wood burn in some type of a logo there. And then the only thing left to do on the neck itself is to drill the holes, the 3 holes for the strings to come through. And these do not have to be very big holes, but we should evenly space them across there. And just see how wide we need to make them. There's a ball end on the string that will catch, so they have to be wide enough for the string to pass through, but not so wide that the ball end comes through. At the back end, what I did is I marked the center line, which is 3/4 inch, went 3/8 to either side of a line that I drew about halfway to the end of the board, and that's where we're going to drill the 3 holes. And the size that I picked for those holes is 5/64 of an inch, and we can do that with a hand drill. Alright, just going to sand this up and the neck will be pretty much done. So I have sanded it, and I did burn a little logo into it. This instrument is being made as a display for the Woodcraft store in Walpole, Massachusetts, to promote a class I'll be teaching on building cigar box guitars. So I put the store number as our logo. One other thing that I've chosen to do with this neck is I'm going to round over the transition from the fretboard to the tuner heads, just to make it a little more pleasing. I'm just using a file just to kind of put an angle in place, and then I'm going to take a round file and round that over. just to give it a nice little pleasing shape. It also will help the strings, if they're, as they angle down to the tuning pegs, not bind up. Touch that up with some sandpaper after. Alright. You can also shape the back of the neck if you want. This is fairly comfortable to hold with a slide, but you may want to break these square edges just so you're not running your hand up and down and getting sliced, because believe it or not, sharp edge on the wood can cut you open. Thanks for watching. In the next video we will continue with the build by preparing the box for installing the neck and completing the instrument.